apparently not even pizza drivers are safe. And if you wanted to see their little bows, like bow hoops. So when this guy was a lot younger and he was still in school, he was working at a pizza place being the delivery driver. He explains how this pizza delivery job was the only reason he was able to get school supplies and the books needed for classes. So one night they get an order for pizza and he says that he was the only delivery driver there, so he accepted, but he accepted without seeing where this pizza was going to be delivered to because it was this town over, but not in the city, out in the middle of nowhere. So the pizza's ready, he gets on his motorcycle and he starts driving to that town, and he's like, well, this town is really in the middle of nowhere because he's literally leaving the city lights behind and basically by himself on a road. He was taking the directions that was given to him, and at some point he had to turn into like this dirt road, which to him wasn't a big deal, but he really just wanted to make the delivery and go back into town because he didn't want to be out there by himself. So when he turns into that dirt road, he notices that there's just a lot of trees, like kind of like a foresty place, and he was alone. It was really dark. He couldn't even see any lights to any houses by that point. So as he's going on this road, he says that on the sides it looked like a lot of forest, and as he's going through this road with the lights of his motorcycle, he can kind of see a lady in between like the forest, not necessarily on the road, but like on the side of the road walking. He explains how this lady looks really old, like she shouldn't be walking out here by herself, and that as he's driving and getting closer to where she is, he notices that the lady's giving him the sign like stop, stop, you know, like almost like if she needed help. When he sees this, he said that he did start slowing down because he got a little bit scared for that lady, but the more and more he would get close to her, the more he would notice that there was something really wrong with this lady. She was wearing a white nightgown, but it was full of like red marks, almost like blood, that even her hair looked a mess, like it was very white and gray. And when he finally got close enough to see this lady's face, he realized that this lady was like smiling, like almost laughing at him, still giving him like signals to come towards her, but like smiling and laughing, just trying to get him to get towards her. Bitch, I would have died on the spot because that's in my head. I'm picturing it and I'm already scared. When he sees this, where she's like giggling and smiling, still trying to get him to get to her, he literally hit the gas. He was like, I'm not stopping. So he accelerated and he went as fast as he could. He looks in the rear view mirror, and why the fuck does he see her following him, running after him at a speed that an old lady should not be running at? He says that he can hear her laughing as she's running, and he could swear at some points he could see her running with both her like arms and legs. Fuck that. He said that what he saw that night just seems like something that you would see in a scary movie, because how the fuck is this old lady running that fast behind me on a motorcycle, and he's literally just looking at it through his rearview mirror. He's obviously still watching her behind him because he's terrified, going as fast as he can. And he said that when she was laughing, it just sounded like she was making fun of him. And the last little view that he had was her kind of going up in the air. It looked like she was jumping, and then when he looked back again, it was like she disappeared into the sky, like up. Not like, oh, she ran to the side. No, like she went up into the sky. Thankfully, he finally made it to like the street where he was gonna deliver the pizza to, and he finally started seeing houses with lights and everything, and he didn't see her anymore, so he went and tried to deliver that pizza. He knocks on the door and gives the lady the pizza, but he says that the lady who answered the door looked really scared, and she's like, are you okay? Like, you don't look good. And he said that he did not lie to this lady, that he told this lady everything that happened on the dirt road before getting to that lady's street. But the reason he told her what he was telling her was because he was gonna ask the lady if there's another way out of here, because obviously he doesn't want to go back to that road. Like, fuck that, I wouldn't want to go through there either. This lady like kept staring at him like, oh my god. Like, so she starts telling him that a lot of people from there have also claimed to have seen this older lady in that dirt road, and that she had appeared to a lot of people who crossed through there. The urban legend, or like the story, was that people believe that she used to be a witch, that people in that town actually burned her a very long time ago because apparently this witch had taken a lot of kids and a lot of people had been disappearing. So the whole town came together and burned her inside of her house. Hocus pocus, who bitch? Apparently that shit was real. However, obviously they didn't expect for her to return to that town and haunt them. But yeah, she's very much there. This lady ends up calling her husband. Her husband comes over and they ask, hey, is there another route for him to take? Because obviously he doesn't want to go back back there. The husband says that there is another route, but it was gonna take him a lot longer to get back into town. And he's like, I don't care, I just want to make it back safe. Thankfully, he made it back to the pizza shop without seeing this lady again. And when he got there, he did tell his co-workers what had just happened. The only reason that the co-workers believed him was because of how scared he looked, so they made it a point to not deliver pizza to that town ever again. He even said that he kept working there, but nobody accepted any orders outside of the town anymore. It didn't even matter if it was that town that he was at. If it was in the outskirts of where they were not accepting orders anymore. Fuck that. No wonder there's no delivery where my mom lives, because that shit is way out in the middle of nowhere. Fuck that too. I don't even care. I hate leaving my mom's house at night because the drive that I have to take by myself, no thank you. But anyway, what do you guys think? Like, that poor pizza driver. And also the people who ordered the pizza, like, you guys fucking knew too. You guys fucking knew. And well, I guess pizza is life. Yeah, pizza is life. Fuck. I'm gonna read you guys a story that is really fucked up, but this is just a reminder to be more scared of the living than the dead. When I was maybe 4 and my sister was 1, my parents had been divorced for a few months and my mom was driving us to Las Vegas to Wichita to see our grandparents. At one gas station on the way, this man came up to the car and told my mother, I hate to see a single mother traveling alone and I noticed you were headed the same direction. Do you want me to follow you for a while to make sure you're safe? She politely said no thanks and drove off. At our next stop for gas, he again came up to us in the guise of checking on us. He had been following us since the last stop. While he was talking to my mom, his sport coat blew open and I saw a gun tucked in his pants. After she again told the man we were fine, she left and I told her what I saw. While she was driving, she wrote a note to give to the next gas station attendant saying who we were, where we were planning on staying the night, and that this creepy dude was following us and what he looked like. Could you please call the law in and have them waiting at the hotel? When we got to the next stop, Mom raced in and handed the clerk the note and sped off with us. We got to the hotel and the manager had the cops waiting in one room and gave us another room with pizza and pop. The man showed up and asked if his wife and kids had checked in yet and what room they were in. The manager gave him the key to the one with the police in it. They questioned him and found out he was a convicted rapist and also had a warrant out, so he was arrested. Can you imagine what would have happened if that little girl hadn't seen that pew pew? Or if the mom was just like, oh, you were saying things that was nothing. Thank God that lady listened to her daughter. This story is also coming from Matamoros. Like I said, I got a little bit curious and started looking up stories from Matamoros, which borders Brownsville, Texas, and I found so many good ones, but this is one that I just want to share so bad. This is the type of story where, like, I wish I can make short films just to watch this play out. So this man's name is Rogelio and he lives in Matamoros, and what he's about to tell us happened in 2013. He explains that even though it's been over a decade since this has happened to him, every time he thinks about it, sends chills down his spine. I forgot, there's skeleton hands holding onto a jewel. There are $5 at Walmart in the Halloween section. So Rogelio works at a cemetery and he had his fair share of weird things happening that made him question reality or like seeing just strange things there. Sometimes in order to make some extra cash, he will paint gravestones, or if people are there visiting their loved ones, he'll go up to them and ask if they need anything. So there was one time where his wife was really sick and he didn't have enough money to get all the medicine that she needed. He was really desperate and he just so happened to see this lady who went to visit her dad's grave, so he went up to her and asked her if she needed anything, but unfortunately she said no. That moment he was very desperate, like I said, and he had to tell the lady. He was like, look, my wife is really sick, I don't have enough money to buy all of her medicine, can I please just do something? Whatever you want to give me is fine. And the lady's like, oh, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and clean my dad's gravestone and I'll pay you. After he finished cleaning her dad's gravestone, he said that he was joking around with her and he's like, look, I showered your dad really well, and she started giggling along with him. She ends up giving him the equivalent of $200 US and tells him, here, so you can get your wife the medicine or anything else that she needs, and obviously he was very grateful to her. He then says that this lady told him something that he had never heard before. She tells him, whenever you're in need of money, go to a deceased person's grave, light up a candle, and ask them for it. She then gives him some extra money and asks him if he can put a candle on her dad's gravestone tomorrow, and obviously he agrees. He actually listened to what this lady told him because over time, anytime he needed money, he would get a candle, go to a deceased person's grave, and he would ask for money. And he wanted to do it in a very respectful way, so he would actually tell the gravestone, like the deceased person, hey, this is why I need the money. Like, he wasn't doing it recklessly, he just really needed the money in the moment. He said that it worked, and and he was actually doing really well. So over time, he stopped doing it altogether because he didn't need to anymore. So years have passed and his kids grew up. One of them is 4 and the other one is 7, and they're ready to go back to school. So he ends up taking them to the store, getting them backpacks, shoes, and the uniforms that are needed, but that left him without any money. Even though he bought them the shoes, the backpack, the outfits, they still needed school supplies, and he was left with nothing after that. He also said that he's been at the cemetery waiting for people to come to see if he can offer some services and get some tips so that he can get those school supplies for his kids. Unfortunately, no one was coming, or nobody really needed him, so he wasn't able to make that money. By this point, it was Friday. He wasn't able to get that money, but then he remembered the lady, the one that told him what he should do years ago and go place a candle. So that's exactly what he did. He went to get a candle and he actually put it on the lady's father's gravestone, and he did tell him, like, look, I really need the money. I really want to buy my kids school supplies. Can you please help me? He waited impatiently for someone to come to the cemetery and hoping that they needed him so that he can get a tip, but it was noon, and then it was 3 o'clock, and then it was 4, and nobody had come to the cemetery. He gave up and he just thought to himself, like, man, that candle trick didn't work today, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna get that money for the school supplies. It was around 5:40 and he had to close down the cemetery at 6, so that's what he was gonna go do. He was walking towards the gates, but that's also when he heard a sound. It's actually a guy. He said the guy looks really nice. He had jeans on, he had like a square style shirt, and he went up to him right away and he asked if he could help him do anything, and the guy said yes. He's like, here, grab this. It was like 4 packs of beer and chips and just like random stuff. He said that they walked to this big mausoleum. The guy took out a key and opened the door to the mausoleum, and he helped put all of the beer and, you know, the chips and everything inside. Once he was done, he asked them, hey boss, do you need anything else? Maybe I can go get you some water. Is there anything that you need? And the guy tells him no, but he's taking his wallet out and gives him a $50 bill. When he sees the 50, he looks at him and he's like, hey, I don't have change for this. And the guy's like, oh no, that's for you. Go ahead and keep it. So obviously he leaves. He's so happy. He's thanking God and he's apologizing to that lady's, you know, deceased father, saying, I'm so sorry I didn't believe in you. Thank you for coming through. And obviously he went home so happy that he was able to get those school supplies for his kids. However, the following day, really early in the morning, he gets a phone call from his boss asking him to meet him inside of the cemetery. When he gets there, he notices that the boss is at the same mausoleum that guy he had helped the night before was at, and there was a few other people there with him. Am I saying mausoleum right? You know what I'm talking about. If I'm not saying it right, you know what I mean. When he gets to where they are, he says that the boss looked at him and said, did you or anybody else drink beer at this mausoleum yesterday or last night? And he was like, oh no, it was that guy that came. He came like right before closing, and I did help him put the beer in there, but I didn't drink beer. I left and he stayed here. He obviously started describing the guy physically and what he was driving and everything like that. As he's describing the guy to him, because he's like, I did not drink beer, he notices that one of the lady just sits down. Like, it almost looked like she couldn't hold herself up anymore and she just sat, and then another lady just started crying. He didn't understand what was happening, but obviously he needed his job, so he's like, I don't know what happened, but I promise you I didn't drink beer. I didn't make this mess, because there was like beer and like chips everywhere in that mausoleum. He even explains to them, like, he gave me money, he gave me a tip when I helped put this stuff in there, and I was happy because I needed that money for my kids for their school supplies. And they all start crying, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is going on? So finally a girl came up to him, had her phone and had a picture, and shows the picture to him and says, was it this guy? He was like, yeah, that's the guy. Call him so that he could tell you that I just helped him. I didn't drink the beer. Call him. He will tell you that he was the one that stayed here. The girl who had just showed him that picture on the phone explains to him that that's her brother, but it's been 2 years that he has been passed, and that mausoleum was his. They were all actually there that day because it was his birthday, and they were just gonna come bring him flowers and beer and stuff like that. In that moment, he felt like his legs were about to give up, because he's like, no, I saw him. Like, I saw him. He was here. He gave me money. Like, what do you mean he's been deceased? He did end up cleaning that mausoleum for them, but he just couldn't stop thinking about it, because he swears that guy was there. Like, he gave him money. He, you know what? Like, this is impossible. He believes that God gave that guy permission to celebrate his birthday however he wanted, and that maybe he heard his, desperate cries and how he needed that money, and he was able to make that happen for him. I don't find this story scary. I find it very sweet, but like, what are your thoughts? I want to hear what you guys think about it, because this sounds so sweet to me. Like, it's a little scary, yeah, but also like the way that maybe these different deceased people came together to make it happen for him, because he really needed it for his family, for his kids. It's crazy. I want to cry right now. Oh my god, okay, I gotta go. Mausoleum. It was mausoleum the whole fucking time. I kept saying Molosseum. Bro, this video took me like 15 minutes to record. If you hear me say, what was I saying? Molosseum. Oh my god, what is it? It's mausoleum, you stupid bitch. If you hear me say Molosseum, just know that in my heart I meant a mausoleum. Okay, thank you. Just know that I'm translating this from Spanish to English, so Google is free. I have no excuse. Okay, I'm sorry. Bye. Because crossing the border isn't scary enough, imagine running into La Llorona. Yeah, so I'm from the Valley, which is so South Texas that if you keep going straight on the highway, you will end up in Mexico. More specifically in Matamoros, which is the border town to Brownsville, Texas. And I'm a nosy bitch and decided to look up scary stories from Matamoros, and well, do I have regrets? Yes. Am I gonna share them with you? Also yes. And yes, these are Pop-Tarts. This one has a little bite taken out of it. So cute. So this guy's actually from Guatemala, but he traveled to Matamoros because he was planning to cross over to the United States. Obviously, this is a very scary thing for him. He knew the risks, and he's heard terrifying stories about crossing the border. He's heard about people drowning, about people just disappearing and never being heard from again, so obviously this was a very big risk. So him and a couple of other people got in contact with a coyote who said he had a safe route on how to get to the other side, so they paid him. They had been walking for a very, very long time. He said that the current looked really strong, but he was a good swimmer, so he knew that he was going to be able to make it across, or at least that's what he thought. As soon as all of them got into that river, they all heard this strange sound that didn't sound human. In the beginning, he ignored that sound because he thought to himself, I'm just nervous, I'm hearing things, maybe it's the wind. But then that sound happened again. This time he paid attention, and he said that it sounded like somebody was crying, like really sad, and it was coming from the US side of the river. He said that the second time they all heard it again, they all looked at each other and they could tell that they were all very scared, but they decided to just go on and try to cross the river, just not worry about what that sound was. As he's walking in the river, he said that the water got to like his chest, and that is when he saw her. On the US side of the river was a lady who looked like she was hovering over the ground, and that the wind was moving her dress from side to side. Her dress was all white. When he looks at her face, he said that this lady was just looking right back at them, but she wasn't talking, she wasn't screaming, she wasn't doing anything but looking at them. He wanted to scream to warn the other guys that the lady was standing right there, but that's when the coyote was telling them to hurry up, so he couldn't warn them about the lady. In that moment, when he had seen the lady, he was about to tell the guys about her. The coyote was rushing them. He didn't get a chance to. He suddenly feels something pull him underneath the river. He didn't understand how he was underneath the water, how someone had pulled him, because it wasn't that deep. He was standing there, and once he was underneath the water, he opened his eyes and he could see a white dress next to him. He could see how this lady in that white dress had her arms extended, holding on to his legs. He could see her face, but there was no actual like facial features, that her eyes just looked like they were empty holes. When he saw her, he said he screamed so loud underneath the water that obviously he swallowed some of that water, and in that moment he just knew that he had to fight. He kicked, he punched, he tried to get away, but nothing was working. He can feel how this thing was pulling him more and more underneath that water. When he finally managed to get away and go all the way on top of the water, he went out there just trying to breathe desperately, but he saw her standing right next to him, right there, right in front of him. She started crying, and he said that he felt like her cries were moving that water so intensely. He tried to swim to the edge of the river, but he felt as if something was holding him right there. He knew that it wasn't the river or something inside of that river doing that to him, that it was her. At that point, he was shaking, he was cold, he felt like he couldn't breathe anymore, and he thought to himself, like, this is where I'm going to die. Then all of a sudden, like a stronger kind of current came, and he felt that thing had let him go, and he swam all the way to the edge. With the last energy that he had, he held held onto a branch on the side of that river. The people who had been there with them finally saw him and helped him off and out of that river. When he finally looked at them, they were all pale and asking him like, what happened? What happened to you? Where were you? At that point, he couldn't talk. Like, he didn't have the energy. All he could do was look back at that river and see if that lady was gonna come after him. He never saw her again. When he finally made it to where he had family and friends, there was this old guy that he knew, and he told him what had happened because at that point he hadn't told anybody. After this older man listened to his story, he looked at him very seriously and said, yeah, La Llorona has been appearing in that river for a very long time. Sometimes she takes the people who she confuses with her children. If she touched you when you're alive, it's because she let you live. He explains that ever since then, if he goes near like a body of water or a river, that's all he could think of. That's all the memories that he will forever have when he goes near any river. And sometimes when he goes to sleep, he has nightmares that he's back there again, and he almost feels as if she's out here looking for him. I have chills just thinking about how close that Rio Bravo is to us. Like, who would have known? La Llorona, literally in our backyards. Thankfully, never seen her, never want to see her. But that shit is definitely scary, because imagine already taking that risk and not thinking that something paranormal is gonna happen to you. Like, what the fuck? But what do you guys think? The strange dog that showed up to the cemetery. Does anybody want to shot before I start? And of course, this happened in Mexico. So this guy named Mateo says that he'd been working at the cemetery for over 20 years. His job was to help with funeral services and to keep the grounds clean and safe. The cemetery itself was really big, and he actually lived on the grounds in a casita in the far back. His only neighbors were the dead people and some of the stray dogs that basically lived there. Of course, with time, he got used to living at the cemetery. He says that sometimes he swore that he could see shadows in the middle of the night, or people crying when nobody should be there. And sadly, sometimes people would go in the middle of the night and abandon their pets there, like just leave them there. He said that the majority of those animals that were abandoned were because they were really old, and some of them look really sick. So he would end up feeding them, giving them water, and if they would return and stay with them, he would make like makeshift beds for them to sleep on. He admits that he is an introvert, so it was really hard for him to make friends. So having the company of these dogs with him was really great. These dogs basically became his friends. So it was because of this that when he saw this random brown dog one day, he didn't really think anything of it. He just thought, hey, it's another dog that somebody abandoned, and I'm gonna go ahead and take him in. However, he does admit that when he laid eyes on this dog, he's like, wait, this dog is not old, and he doesn't look sick. Actually, his eyes look very bright, like if he had a lot of life in him. He admits that the dog gave him like this weird, uncomfortable feeling, but he didn't want to be mean and still gave the dog food and water. Nevertheless, he says that the dog ate that food like it hadn't eaten in a really long time, and when it was done, the dog was like just looking at him for like a very long time. He said that because of this, he also named the dog Coffee because of the color of its eyes. After this, Coffee was always with him if he had to go bury a hole, if he had to go plant some flowers, even if he had to go to the restroom, Coffee was always there right behind him. Coffee basically became his shadow, but everything changed after a week. He started to hear voices, and it was to the point where he was like, are people outside praying over a grave, or maybe is it the wind and I'm going crazy? But every time he would go outside to check, there was no one ever out there. No one was ever out there other than Coffee, who would always just stare at him as soon as he came outside to check and see if people have gotten into the cemetery. There was another night where he had came out to smoke a cigarette, and when he did, he saw Coffee standing on both of its hind legs, just looking towards the north side of the cemetery, almost as if he was waiting for someone. As soon as he saw him, he's like, Coffee! And he said that Coffee turned around, looked at him, went back on all his four legs, and started, running towards him to where he was. And Coffee was just back to being, his own self, as if nothing had just happened. He says that that night he found it very hard to fall asleep after that. After this, he started to notice that the other dogs didn't like Coffee. Like, as soon as they would see him, they would start growling at Coffee, and even some of them would just avoid him altogether. Even some dogs had stopped eating for days after Coffee had gotten there. Like, they wouldn't even get near his house to eat. He just told himself that maybe it was all in his head, like nothing weird was going on. But every day he was getting more and more nervous about Coffee. So there was one afternoon where he was putting the dirt back in a hole, and he said that he heard a voice. The voice said,
Mateo, Mateo, It's me down here. Look down here.
Mateo immediately stops what he's doing, gets the hammer that he had on his belt, and looks around and sees nothing. He only sees Coffee a few feet away, just sitting there watching him. He thought to himself that there's no way that was Coffee, and he started saying, oh my gosh, you're so tired, you need some sleep, like it couldn't have been this dog. However, that night was one of the worst nights that he experienced. He had finally been able to fall asleep, and something inside of his house in the hallway woke him up. It sounded like long footsteps, like someone was walking inside of his house. He opened his bedroom door, and in the hallway was Coffee walking on its hind legs. Why do I have chills? I swear, oh my god. Coffee was walking and had his arms crossed like this, almost as if there was a human like hiding inside of him. When he finally looked at Coffee's face, he said that he was moving its mouth almost as if Coffee was trying to say something to him. And in that moment, he wanted to scream, but nothing came out. However, he was able to just slam the door shut of his bedroom, locked it, and he just waited there just to see what was gonna happen next. Why did my lights just flicker, bitch? No, it's not even raining outside. It's rain. In my head, it's raining outside. In my head, there's a thunderstorm because there's no reason for you to fucking... He stayed up all night until morning and didn't hear anything else in his house again. When he opened the door, Coffee was no longer there, and actually, he never saw Coffee again after that night. He doesn't believe that Coffee was an actual dog. He thinks it was something completely different, but he's always thinking like, what did it want? Why did it go to the cemetery? Like, why did it stay there with him? What was his goal? Why was he there? Because that one night, it looked like he was there waiting for something, like when he was just standing there on its hind legs. He's always questioning this, like, was Coffee a nahual? Was Coffee a brujo that was at the cemetery trying to like, get something? Because in Mexico, a lot of the times the reason why they have freaking security is because people do witchcraft, and sometimes people want to steal dead people bones. Fuck. He doesn't know what to make of it, but it has been a very long time, and he has never seen this dog again. So what do you guys think? What the hell was Coffee? Because that was definitely not a dog, and if it was, like, why was it doing all these weird things? Let me know in the comments. I was tagged in this page, Corsa Paranormal Stories. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So if you want to go and check out the original, please go to their TikTok. And to the people who are tagging me in scary shit, thank you so much. I love you. So let me just read this for you before I actually show you the picture. Stay, it'll be fun. The person who shared the following photograph states that since he was a child, he had seen a woman who constantly appeared at him at home. He comments that no one believed him until 21 years later, he took this photo where he managed to capture the woman who had been terrifying him in his house since he was a child. So this is the picture. Let me know if you see anything weird or not. Closer look. Oh, I don't like this. Oh my goodness. I don't even want to look it straight in the face. Why are the eyes glowing like that? You're telling me there was no one there? I'm wondering if that's a mirror. No, it's not a mirror because there's like, or maybe the back is the mirror. You could put like decorations there. So how? There's no way that would be reflective unless something was said in there. You know what? At least he now has evidence, because there's one thing that I hate. Like, I used to hate whenever shit would happen to me and no one believed me. No one believed me. What do you guys think? Somebody left a comment on this video and I need to read it to you guys because that shit was scary. The comment was left by Gabriela Garza, and I did ask for permission to share and she said yes, so thank you so much. Let me start. My dad used to tell us a story about a couple that was on their way home in Guayin. Oh, like a horse and carrot. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I'm so sorry. They were in their way to the rancho in Tamaulipas. They found a baby on the side of the dirt road and they decided to pick it up. But as they kept traveling, the baby started growing in the lady's lap. When she looked down at it, she said that the baby looked up at her and told her, "Y tengo dientes también." Translation, and I have teeth too. They freaked out and threw the baby off of the cart. Oh my god, wait, that's something I would do. They freaked out and threw the baby off of the cart and booked it home. They looked back and it was a man looking at them, haunting them all the way home. That story always freaked me out. What do you mean that baby was growing and looked up at her and said, "I have teeth too"? So do I, bitch. So do I. I'm sorry, but I would have thrown that baby too, because obviously that is not a baby, okay? Don't judge me. That is not a baby. That was something else. What would you have done? What would you guys have done?
কাজে আসছি, দরকার নেই। কি কাম? কোনটা সুমারি করতে আসছি, যে কার কার বাড়িতে আবে একটা মেয়ে আছে তার একটা লিস্ট করতে আসছি।
ওই সময় যে মেয়েটা দেখলাম আমার লগে ও একটু আগে সুইসাইড করছে।
আছে না গেছে
এর আগে 3-3 চেষ্টা করছে, মরে নাই।
নাম কি তার?
হ্যাঁ তুমি নিছো।
এর লিগে তো মর না এবার ফিরত যায়। এই মেয়েরে তোমার দরকার।
আমা
লগ ইন করুন বিক্রয়বাবা.com এ। সহজেই অর্ডার করুন আপনার যা দরকার। সব কেনাকাটা এখানে। বিক্রয়বাবা.com আমার ডিজিটাল দোকান।
লগ ইন করুন বিক্রয়বাবা.com এ। সহজেই অর্ডার করুন আপনার যা দরকার। সব কেনাকাটা এখানেই। বিক্রয়বাবা.com আমার ডিজিটাল দোকান।
এলাকার মানুষজন কয় উড়ি নাকি পাগল।
উড়ি ময়না ময়না আসসালামু আলাইকুম ডাক্তার সাহেব। ওয়ালাইকুম সালাম। দুটো টান দেন। কিছু কিছু সময় বদলাইতে হয়।
ভালোবাসাটা দিলাও না, ভালোবাসাটা নিলাও না।
তুই হলো ছোট পাগল, আমি হলাম বড় পাগল।
আলো আধারের ভিড়ে আমি হারিয়ে যাই, আশেপাশে এত কোলাহল আমি একা রয়ে যাই।
সেরা উপাদানের পারফেক্ট ব্লেন্ডে রাঁধুনের বিরিয়ানি, কাচ্চি ও হায়দ্রাবাদি মশলায় যেটাই রাঁধেন তার এমনই স্বাদ যে বিরিয়ানি ছাড়ার কিছু মাথায় থাকবে না। রাঁধুনি রেডিমিক্স বিরিয়ানি মশলা। সেরা উপাদানের পারফেক্ট ব্লেন্ডের রাঁধুনি রোস্ট মশলায় তৈরি রোস্টের এমনই স্বাদ যে রোস্ট ছাড়া কিছু মাথায় থাকবে না।
ও মা, রোস্টটা কিন্তু সেই ছিল।